Over the last 10 years, animation has begun hitting its heyday with shows like Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, X-Men 97, Invincible, BoJack Horseman, and many, many other projects. Recently, another titan of the game ended, Arcane. With some of the best creative animation, amazing characters, dynamic morally gray plot structures, and a strong base to stand on, Arcane has done its part to win 4 Emmys and gain a 9 out of 10 on IMDb, and has become not only one of the most expensive animated projects ever, but has captured the hearts of millions of viewers. Hello and welcome to Television Tuesday, the show where we talk TV on Tuesday and tell you all about it. I'm your host Garrett, and today, we delve into the Arcane. Getting right into it, I'm going to break down the general plot points of the show, and then give you my creative thoughts on the show itself and all of the characters. Getting right into Season 1, we are introduced to our characters and 3 major plots. The looming war between Piltover and its undercity Zon, the rivalry between Vi and Jinx, and the creation of Hextech, with a subplot of the Medarda family. The first was a really cool arc with Silco and his gang being genuinely good antagonists. Silco was a really cool character to follow, and I really liked seeing the corruption in Piltover being not that different from what's going on in Zon. And I just loved how morally gray a lot of these plot structures could be. And I liked how they were both neutral but hostile throughout the whole first season, and even though they ended in a peace between, it felt like things really weren't going to change with how the scientists and politicians really oppressed the people from Zon. I really like how this developed into the tense and stressful narrative that it was, and really showed how much war can change a person. The other half of this plot was the plot with Jace, Mel, Heimerdinger, and Victor. I really like how fluid this plot felt between both seasons, and I really think the different viewpoints on progress, as they all called it, were really well explained through different viewpoints. You had Heimerdinger fearing the mages of the past, you had Mel who was being influenced to weaponize Hextech, you had Jace who was the original inventor and was being pulled in so many different directions he truly couldn't find a good path. And then you had Victor who truly was just trying to help people. You know, before the whole glorious evolution cult thing that ends up happening in season 2, but we'll get back to that later. The next plot goes between Vi and Jinx, who are your leads, voiced by Haley Steinfeld and Ella Purnell, respectively. And I love how this plot weaves between them trying so hard to get back together, but just everything in this world pulling them back apart. It was super engaging, and honestly, Jinx probably ends up being one of my favorite characters. I love her plot progression throughout the entire season, and she felt like one of the only characters that really stayed true throughout the whole show and knew where she was going and had her morals and values kind of set in stone, regardless of what they were. Season 2 had a long wraparound, but I kind of felt like towards the middle we may have been losing the plot some, but it actually ended up wrapping all the way back around into such a tight finale. The beginning of Season 2 follows up on the cliffhanger ending of Season 1, where Jinx blows up the council with her missile. And this quickly turns into Ambessa trying to take over the government of Piltover for her own selfish cause. All of this leads into Caitlyn hunting down Jinx, and Jinx was kind of able to step back and normalize herself after the chaos that she was in Season 1. This escalates into many people fighting for her to protect them, as Zon is kind of under a military state. A big plot during Season 2 that we get into the middle of is bringing back Vander as another character from the base game, Warwick, which he's only called that in subtitles, but it's what they call them. The final 2 plot threads of Season 2 are Mel getting taken by a magic cult maybe called the Black Rose, which was cool because she did gain mage abilities, though I feel like she learned how to control them maybe a little fast, but I think we'll see more of this later. And then for the final plot, we have Victor, who after the events of Season 1 was injured and fused with the Hex Core to become this mind-altering antagonist who has this cult of healed people. And as we saw in the episode with different timelines, this would lead to the destruction of the world that they're in. Overall, the 18-episode span really ended up being something super engaging and entertaining, and it really knew how to immerse me into the show, which I gotta say was one of the show's greatest strengths. The bigger point I want to get into here is the characters, as I know that this is, well, a really good show. Also, it is meant to give lore and backstory to these pre-existing characters from the game League of Legends. And I wasn't expecting too much from all the characters, because the game's got so many characters that you can play as, so I was like, okay, we're gonna get a good mix of them. What I wasn't expecting were the side characters, and characters that aren't playable, or even became playable, that I really enjoyed. It's just a really good narrative with a select few characters from this giant roster, and I think it was wonderfully put together. First off, we have Vi, or Violet, who is one of the show's main protagonists, and is who I feel is a character that is mostly motivated by the people she cares about. Whether that be Jinx, or Vander, or Caitlyn, her character feels very dependent on what the people around here are presenting to her. Getting into Jinx, or Powder. This is a character that I absolutely loved, and started as just a smart kid. And between the voices of the dead haunting her throughout the show, and a personality that sometimes felt like Batman the Animated Series' Joker, I gotta say, this character surprised me. I thought Jinx was going to be the main villain of this show getting into season 2, but really, this was probably the character with some of the most heart. And a character that really could adapt while staying true to her own values, and man was that Isha plot really heartfelt. I loved watching it. Next, we get into our next main character, Jace. Jace is a character with complexity that came truthfully from how many hooks people could have put in him. From the fated love story with Mel, the partnership and later rivalry with Victor, the push and pull from the council, the opposition from Caitlyn and Vi, and the pushback from Heimerdinger, this man got his mind broken. Especially in Season 2 when he actually got his mind broken by trying to destroy the Hex Core anomaly. And this character I felt worked really hard towards something to help people and then just pushed and got pulled around and ultimately ended up dying for something he genuinely believed in. Next, we get into Vander, or Warwick, who was a really cool character with a lot of backstory, and him and Silco had a really good dynamic, especially in Season 2 whenever we see the backstory to the sister's mother, who was there in the beginning trying to help kick off Zahn. I think Silco was another character that I wasn't expecting to come out of this show that was really well put together, and honestly, probably ended up being one of my favorites. And if Vander would have really gotten back to himself in Season 2, he probably would have been right up there on that list with him. Victor was a dope character, from his goals to his illness, to his apprenticeship with another playable character who was a side character in this show, Singed. While Season 2 really capitalized on this, truthfully, I think he was a good guy who got corrupted with the power, trying to make the world what he thought it should be. Caitlyn was a character I truly believed to be completely good. She was a character that honestly got taken advantage of, not only through Ambessa, but also through war itself. Season 1, she really fought for a good and a better future, but whenever her mom was killed by Jinx's missile, she sought blood. This even led to her initially breaking up with Vi by means of physical violence, and then she went and their other friend. And that really made me not like her for a while, but truthfully, this was very much a broken person through the conflicts of war. Finally, we get into the Medarda family, and this is a plot that I don't think is quite over regardless of Ambessa's death throughout Season 2. Mel was someone who wanted to do good things, and despite her mother's warmongering, did. While not the deepest characters in the show, I do know that following Arcane's end, there will be more projects put out by Riot, and based on kind of where they were from, I do think that this story will continue, and we'll get more with Mel and the Black Rose. The characters I'm not really going to touch on right now, besides the non-playable characters that are in the show that, while are cool, I just not going to bring up here, are Heimerdinger and Echo. While I really liked these characters and their plot together and separately was cool, I don't feel like I knew these characters that well. They were definitely on the bottom of the development chain in regards to others, Heimerdinger more than Echo, as Echo was the real hero in the end and did truthfully have good goals and morals. I just don't feel like we got enough from these two in terms of depth. The next point I want to get into in this video is how this show felt so reminiscent of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. From the animation to the dynamics of the characters, it felt like home for a Star Wars fan. I feel like this war-riddled world with two characters who were as close as people could get, split apart by two opposing sides of a conflict, started before them, really just felt like it could be either show. Whereas you have Jinx and Anakin, who were these chaotic, overwhelming presences in their wars, and they fought on both sides. With all the political tension and amazing fight animation and characters, this just felt too comparable not to bring up. Finally, touching on the animation itself, this show was the peak of it. With the main style being amazing on its own, they also included various other styles, like with a comic-looking art style, hand-drawn childlike bits, watercolor expressions, and the opening cinematics of certain episodes, they all looked incredible. This is something that I truthfully loved throughout the show, was all the different uses of art, and just the base art in general was super well made. I thought it was a super artistic choice to put this in the show, and honestly made my viewing experience so much better. It was something that drew me in immediately, and honestly that I would put at the top of my list with other major studios right now like WIT, MAPPA, and even Disney. Overall, I was really into this project, and I can't wait to see what comes after. And while I haven't played the game except for maybe a couple times with a friend, I really don't know too much more about the lore of this. But if they keep putting out projects that are as good as this, I'm gonna watch. This was super entertaining, and I really want to know more. And if you're watching this and you do know more, fill me in the comments. Let me know. I'm interested to see what could come next. And while you're at it, leave a like, leave a sub. Check us out here at Studio 24. We have so much more content like this. We've got this show, Television Tuesday. We've also got our sister show, Studio Cinema Saturday. We also have our newest show where we buy a film a drink when it turns 21, and also we have many really great short films. Because we are filmmakers here at Studio 24, it is what we love to do, so stick with us, and and we'll see you there. I know that this show in itself is meant to give backstory and new lore to pre-existing characters from the base game League of Legends. And our newest show, where we buy a drink, we buy a drink of film,